At my 29th birthday, Grandpa Arthur handed me a check for $1 million. But before the shock could even settle, the heavy brass deadbolt on the study door clicked shut. My mother stood blocking the only exit. She pointed at the paper and screamed, "Give that to your brother right now, or you are never walking out of this house." I didn't panic. I found a way out. And I went straight to the bank anyway. But when the branch manager typed my routing details into the system, all the blood drained from his face. He slowly pushed his monitor away, looked me dead in the eye, and whispered, "Ma'am, you need to call the police immediately. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community." The heavy brass deadbolt had snapped shut with a sound like a gavel striking wood. My mother, Heather, leaned against the mahogany door of the study, crossing her arms. Behind her stood my father, Robert, and my brother, Jordan. Jordan couldn't even look me in the eye. He just stared at the Persian rug. Sweating through his designer shirt, "You are going to endorse that check right now." "Amanda," Heather snapped, her voice shrill enough to rattle the crystal bourbon glasses on the desk. "Jordan's creditors aren't playing games. It is $1 million. You don't need it." "He does." I didn't cry. I didn't ask why the Golden Child's underground gambling syndicate was suddenly my liability. Panic is an amateur's reaction. And emotion is just bad data in an audit. I deleted it. Instead, my brain shifted into investigator mode. I looked down at the blank wire transfer form Heather had shoved onto the desk. Looking at that piece of paper, a very specific ghost ledger opened in my mind. Years ago, Grandpa Arthur set up a $400,000 medical and college trust to cover my spinal surgeries. When I turned 18, Heather sat me down, squeezed my hand, and swore the market crash had wiped the account out. I believed her. I worked triple shifts with a steel rod in my back to pay for my degree. But I am a financial crimes investigator. At age 22, I ran my first forensic trace. The market didn't crash my trust. They did. August 4th. $85,000 withdrawn to buy Robert a brand new Porsche. September 12th. $12,000 wired directly to Jordan's fraternity offshore account. They had already harvested my past. Now, they were trying to liquidate my future. "Sign it," Robert barked, finally finding his courage. "Or we stay in this room until you do." Heather slammed her manicured hands onto the desk, her patience gone. "If you don't sign this right now," she hissed, her face inches from mine, "I will call your firm in the morning. I will tell your partners that you have been embezzling client funds. I will burn your career to the ground." "Amanda, do you understand me?" She thought that was the kill shot. She thought threatening my license would finally break me. But I didn't argue. I didn't try to appeal to whatever maternal instinct she lacked. I simply reached into my blazer, pulled out my own pen, and drew the bank's wire transfer form toward me. I didn't just sign my name, though. I flipped the paper over and drafted a highly specific corporate authorization slip on the back, formulating a Tier 3 routing mandate. It was a document I knew for an absolute fact required an in-person, biometric banking token, and dual manager approval to even initiate. To anyone else, it looked like a binding legal transfer of $1 million. To a federal auditor, it looked like a massive red flag. I slid the paper across the mahogany wood. Heather snatched it up immediately. She didn't read the fine print. She didn't understand the routing codes. Her face twisted into a hideous, triumphant smirk. The arrogance of scavengers is always exactly the same. They think they are apex predators because they manage to force a signature, completely unaware that their victim designed the ecosystem. Coercing a financial crimes investigator into signing a flagged routing document isn't a victory. It is the financial equivalent of stepping on a landmine and bragging about the click. See? Was that so hard? Heather sneered, folding the paper and slipping it into her pocket. She stepped back and finally turned the brass deadbolt, pulling the heavy door open. Now get out of my house. I drove straight to the downtown executive branch. The silence inside my car was absolute. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call a friend to vent. I just drove. When I pushed through the heavy glass doors of the bank, I bypassed the long teller lines entirely. I walked straight past the velvet ropes and stepped directly into the frosted glass office of the branch manager, Mr. Vance. He had known me for years. Well aware that I handled complex corporate audits, I sat down in the leather chair across from him and slid my copy of the coerced authorization slip onto his polished desk, keeping my voice completely flat. I requested a hard, immediate freeze on the routing number my mother had provided, along with a full, federal-level asset trace. Vance nodded, pulling his reading glasses down from his forehead. His keyboard clicked rhythmically as he typed the long sequence of numbers into the federal banking terminal. The soft, mechanical hum of the air conditioner was the only sound in the room. I watched the silver second hand on his wall clock tick forward. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Suddenly, the clicking stopped. Vance's fingers froze, hovering rigidly over the keys. I watched as the color completely drained from his face, leaving his skin a pale, ashen gray. He swallowed hard, looking from the glowing screen to me, and then back to the screen. He didn't say a single word. He just slowly rotated his monitor so I could see the terminal for myself. The twist dropped like an anvil, heavy and entirely undeniable. My parents hadn't just stolen my childhood medical fund. The federal database displayed 12 different shell companies, 12 active shadow corporations, all registered under my exact name, my social security number, my exact date of birth. For the past 6 years, my mother and father had been acting as money mules, funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars for the exact same underground loan sharks my brother owed. And the document they had just locked me in a room and forced me to sign? It wasn't just a simple wire transfer. It was a carefully constructed trap designed to make me the sole legal fall guy for a massive, multi-state federal money laundering operation. They weren't trying to save Jordan. They were trying to sacrifice me to keep themselves out of federal prison. My phone began to vibrate violently against the polished wood of the side table. It buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. A text from Robert flashed across the screen. The wire bounced. "We are coming to the bank. Do not embarrass us." I simply turned the phone face down. 20 minutes later, the heavy brass revolving doors of the bank lobby spun with aggressive force. Heather and Robert marched into the sprawling marble room, completely blind to the fact that they were walking onto a stage they couldn't control. There were at least 30 people in the lobby that morning. Business owners depositing cash, elderly couples holding passbooks, and 2 armed security guards stationed quietly by the pillars. Heather immediately weaponized the only asset she thought she had left, her concerned mother persona. She marched right past the velvet ropes, her voice carrying sharply across the echoing ceilings. She stopped in the center of the room and pointed a dramatic finger at me. "Excuse me," she announced to the head teller, making sure everyone within a 50-foot radius could hear her. "My daughter is having a severe mental breakdown. We are in the middle of a crucial, time-sensitive family real estate transfer, and she just walked out in a manic state. She forgot to finish the legal paperwork. I demand that you bypass your standard protocol and process this authorization immediately." I didn't stand up to defend myself. I didn't interrupt her performance. I sat perfectly still in the deep leather chair. Crossing my legs, I observed her stake her entire social reputation on this manufactured victimhood. She was screaming that I was tearing the family apart, producing literal tears for an audience of strangers. She treated her lies like a high-yield investment, compounding her emotional performance to maximize the payout. But I knew her ledger was entirely empty. I noticed the slight tremor in Robert's hands as he hovered behind her. I saw the security guards exchange a sharp look, their hands resting near their radios. Every single eye in that marble room was fixed on Heather. She genuinely thought she was building a cage of public pressure to force my compliance. She had no idea she was simply gathering witnesses for her own public execution. I let her keep talking, allowing the heavy silence to stretch out between her frantic sentences. I let her scream. I sat back and waited as she exhausted her own lungs, her voice echoing off the high ceilings until she finally ran out of breath. She stood there panting, chest heaving, waiting for me to break down, to cry, and to apologize in front of the audience she had so carefully gathered. Instead, the heavy, frosted glass doors of the executive suite clicked open. The sharp sound cut through the marble lobby like a gunshot. Mr. Vance stepped out. But he wasn't alone. He was flanked by 3 federal agents wearing dark, tactical windbreakers. The entire room went completely, suffocatingly silent. The elderly couple stopped moving. The tellers froze behind their protective glass. I stood up slowly from the leather chair. In my right hand, I held a freshly printed, 40-page federal fraud dossier, still warm from the printer. I walked across the polished floor, my heels clicking methodically in the absolute quiet, and stopped right in front of her. I held the thick stack of paper out. The wire didn't bounce. "Mother," I said, my voice carrying effortlessly across the silent room. It triggered a Title 18. Section 1956 money laundering alert. It flagged the exact 12 shadow corporations you and Robert opened using my social security number. It flagged the $240,000 you moved through Horizon Holdings last Tuesday, and the $80,000 you wired to Jordan's creditors this morning. Heather's jaw physically dropped. The manufactured tears vanished instantly, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. The color drained from her cheeks as she looked at the dossier, and then at the federal agents closing in around her. Robert didn't even try to defend her. He spun around, making a pathetic dash toward the revolving doors. An agent stepped directly into his path, grabbing his shoulder and spinning him against the cold marble pillar. The metallic, heavy click of the handcuffs echoed sharply through the lobby, instantly shattering their entire facade of wealth, power, and respectability. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the bank and watched as the federal agents shoved Heather and Robert into the back of their black SUVs. Jordan, who had been waiting in the parking lot for his payout, was pulled from his car and detained right there on the pavement. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anything at all. By noon, Grandpa Arthur's $1 million was securely locked inside an impenetrable, encrypted trust. I pulled out my phone, selected their contact profiles, and hit delete. The sound of the digital trash bin emptying felt like a heavy iron gate finally closing. Society tells us that blood is thicker than water. That family is absolutely everything. But when the people who share your exact DNA look at you as nothing more than an asset to be liquidated, severing the tie isn't a tragedy. It is a necessary extraction. I didn't lose a family today. I successfully audited my life. And I simply removed the liabilities.